And as we step into those higher vibrations, as we unlock those past life masteries, those lessons that we've had of old through our multidimensional body, and we bring back those energies that we have mastered, we can then start to anchor them in this life, and we can start to teach them and assist and be of service within this life. Welcome to Spiritual Midwife, the podcast that tenderly guides you through the transformative journey of spiritual awakening and personal development towards the ultimate destination of soul sovereignty. I'm Claire Attio, a medicine woman and dedicated guide to the profound realm of soul sovereignty, and you are listening to Spiritual Midwife. Hello, beautiful souls. Last week we dealt with the 10 steps towards forgiveness, for forgiveness. This week I want to discuss with you another concept which has actually helped me with bringing in and attaining those levels of forgiveness, and that is understanding the cycles of the soul. It's believed that there are 5 cycles of the soul towards soul sovereignty, towards that embodiment of Christ consciousness. That's what I want to dig in today. Before we dive into the intricate layers of each of these cycles, let's just set the stage and imagine the soul as eternal traveler, weaving its way through lifetimes and gathering up the wisdoms, going through the lessons, attaining mastery over specific aspects that they set out to master within their blueprint. Sometimes that will have been mastered, sometimes it wouldn't. It will completely depend on how we use our free will with each incarnation, and that evolving towards the higher states of consciousness. Each cycle represents a stage of this journey and a step closer to that ultimate realization of becoming our divine nature, walking in our divine nature, stepping into our north node and knowing exactly who we are as a divine being. This concept believes that in each of these phases, these 5 phases, we can have up to 400 lifetimes. I personally don't believe it's a sequential patterning. In spirituality, we always say that time isn't linear and that it's spiral. And from my evidence from this lifetime and from information I have been given in meditations of my past lives, definitely I can see myself in several of these stages within one given lifetime. And so for me, it's my belief that it will very much depend on the soul blueprint, the contract that we make before we reincarnate as to what we want to learn and how we want to learn it. And so that will have a direct influence on the stages of soul growth that we are in or wish to pass through, so that we can learn those lessons, we can have those experiences, we can gain that mastery. Why I'm actually wanting to do this in this podcast is, as I said in the beginning, last week we did do the forgiveness, and it's these deeper spiritual concepts that have helped me. They all have like a knock-on effect. It's like that domino effect. One affects the other, affects the other, affects the other. So when we have that deeper understanding of the spiritual concepts, we then have a greater ability to do the work that is needed to affect the change that we desire. And so that said, let's get on with it. So the first stage is the infant soul, and it's that newborn soul fresh from a cosmic womb. And full of innocence and curiousness. And infant souls are characterized by their purity and simplicity. We need caution here, because as you go to the other end of the spectrum, when we get to the mature soul or the elder soul, they would have embodied so many different energies that they, through their profound gratitude, go back to that wide-eyed innocence because of their gratitude. But the infant soul is very dependent. It has difficulty making up its own mind. It has difficulty expressing its opinions. It follows rather than leads. It's more comfortable in that following. It looks for direction in adult life. We're talking about an infant soul. Remember, we're not talking about a person and their age. We're talking about a soul existence. And so an infant soul is very new. It's still very curious about the world. It's still very pure. It still makes mistakes and stumbles, and this is where kind of karmic contracts start to get made from the mistakes that they make, and obviously creating those karmic cycles. Because it is so pure, it is so innocent, it walks, it stumbles, it falls, it picks itself up again, it does itself off, but in that falling, it's created a karmic cycle. If you've heard me talk about karmic cycles, it's not about punishment, it's about learning. It's about understanding the mistakes we made and taking responsibility and accountability and making the changes that are needed. And when you're following somebody else, you're not being true to yourself. And so with just in that one phrase, you can see how karmic cycles can be constructed and created. The next on our journey is the child soul. And obviously, as the name suggests, these are the souls that are in a stage of growth and exploration, much like a child discovering the world around them. Child souls, they seek adventure, they seek excitement, they're craving new experiences and new connections. They're eager to learn, and they often find themselves drawn to mentors who can guide them on their path. But just like children, these souls don't yet have the wisdom, the experience to have that discernment. And so again, these souls can be led down the wrong path. They're very vulnerable. These are very vulnerable souls when you're a child soul. And again, karmic cycles can be created, usually are. And it sounds quite, but you can see why there are so many times that we come back to work through these. But you can also see, if you're like me, you can see where at some points in your now life, you have fallen into those same traps. The third cycle are the young souls, and these souls are in the prime of their journey. And these are the ones, this is what we're seeing out there a lot at the moment, or kind of 1980s, 1990s, absolutely. And it's still very much the same now. But these are the souls as they're driven by ambition, they're driven by achievement. They're young souls that are dynamic and they're competitive and they're seeking success in the material world. And some of them are pioneers and some of them are forging new paths and some are pushing the boundaries of human potential, which is absolutely wonderful. Not all of that pushing is also governed with wisdom. And this is where, again, caution is actually needed. And yet, amidst their quest for this greatness, they may also grapple with the shadows of the ego and the desire. That's where I say the wisdom. There's not always that wisdom there, because these souls will tend to keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward, keep pushing forward. And they can be very driven by the ego. And this is where the ego gets out of balance. This is where the soul becomes imbalanced, because ego starts to run the show. Desire, materialistic desire, starts to run the show. And it will depend on what they came here to learn, what's in that blueprint, what's in that contract of theirs, as to how they evolve through this physical lifetime or further physical lifetimes, and the morals that were actually adhered to. Were there any morals? Were there any ethics whilst they were seeking that success in the material world? Will again depend on the karmic cycles. And obviously, if they create a huge amount of karmic cycles, the actual physical cycle comes to an end, hopefully a natural end, and they will, in a further lifetime, come back and they will have to work through all those cycles and make amends and take the lessons from that. The fourth is the mature souls. And these souls, they start to possess a deep sense of empathy and compassion. They start to embody that. They embody the wisdom of their experience. The mature soul will actually value connection and have an understanding above all else. And they'll seek to heal and uplift those around them. So they're not driven by their own passions. They're driven by being of service to others. And you very often find in life, these are the teachers and the healers, and the ones that are patient and embody grace. They're guiding younger souls. Now, as I said, when you actually listen to these, you can probably already have picked out a few where you have been in your physical growth evolution. You can see how you've evolved through these cycles. And so it's very similar for the soul, but the soul has even deeper lesson. And that's why I say it's cyclical. The last is you've got the old souls, and these are the wise elders. And these are the wise elders. And this is where we're going towards. This is where we want to get ourselves, so that we can embody the essence of Christ consciousness and radiate that love out, radiate that wisdom out, and share it and inspire and lead. And we kind of detach ourselves from the illusions of the material world, and we find solace in the simplicity of things. We no longer put huge amounts of value on what we have materialistically. Do we like the nice things in life? Yeah, of course. Do we like comfort in life? Absolutely. But there is not an absolute I have to have. There is more of a we can share this. There's that deeper understanding, and there is that desire to embrace everybody into equally, rather than it's the we rather than the me. Sorry, I was going about it a bit long-winded then. We're embracing the we rather than the me. That is the old soul concept. As I said, all the way through this, we can actually see how we ourselves in this one lifetime have probably touched upon 2 or 3, if not 4, of those different stages. As we have grown and developed physically, we have grown and evolved spiritually, our soul essence. And as we step into those higher vibrations, as we unlock those past life masteries, those lessons that we've had of old through our multidimensional body, and we bring back those energies that we have mastered, we can then start to anchor them in this life, and we can start to teach them and assist and be of service within this life. But before we can actually do that, we work through the karmic cycles that we created from past lives, which is what a lot of us have actually been doing, is cleaning up that karmic mess that we've made from past lives as we've been learning, as we've been going through this process, as we've been evolving. And that's why I say it's not about punishment, it's about learning, it's about growth. If a child makes a mistake, you are not going you're not going to motivate them by scolding them. You're going to motivate them by saying, hey, okay, that was a mistake. How can you do that better next time? What can you do to change the outcome so it's more advantageous for you and it doesn't hurt others? Being able to apply those principles. And when we say that, that's when we get to the understanding of how we can apply the forgiveness, because it's then not about what's been done to us. It's about where they're at. Doesn't mean that we condone, doesn't mean that we continue to allow people to be disrespectful or to push our boundaries. It just means that we can step away and know that they are just a soul that still has a fair bit of work to do, a fair bit of learning to do. Even if they're a grown-ass man or a grown-ass woman in their 40s and 50s, we can see the stage that they're at as a soul being. And sometimes that grown-ass 80-year-old that you would think knows better, when you understand the principles of these soul growth stages, you can actually go, uh-huh, okay, they're still an infant. And that, for me personally, helps me to be able to apply that forgiveness. Each of these cycles represents a stage of growth and evolution, and it leads us closer to the realization of our true nature. As I've said, it's not a linear progression, but rather a spiral dance of reincarnation and revelation. As we unravel these mysteries of the soul, we come to understand that it's not about hierarchy, but rather about the depth of our experience and the expansion of our consciousness. I hope that has helped. If you've liked what I've had to say, or you want to add your perception, your beliefs, or any comments, pop them in the comment box. I will respond to each and every one of them. Until next time, take care, beautiful souls.